Welcome to the Be Meaningful podcast, an unrehearsed, unscripted conversation about a real brand in real time with Brian and Bōggie, the founders of Meaningful, an agency that helps brands find a meaningful place in the world.
This episode has Brian and Bōggie talking with Malinda Sandman, Vice President and Head of Global Marketing for Typeform. They talk about how to elevate engagement from data collection to customer experience, and how AI can create a more generative dialogue with prospects in real time. They also read a couple headlines in the process. Let's tune in.
Shall we jump in? I'm gonna have my espresso. Brian, are you ready?
Oh, that's so hoity. That's so hoity-toity.
I had to. Thank you so much for joining us. This is amazing.
Thank you for having me.
I'm actually really excited because I remember the early days of the web. And then I remember this dinky little company that came up with this thing, and you're like, whoa, that's sexy. And so for me, I don't know if this is like facts, probably it is facts, but for me personally, Typeform was kind of like I want to say a revolution, but you guys kind of reinvented the form, I feel like. I mean, that's kind of like a big deal, I think.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's still, when you think of Typeform, that's the first thing that comes to mind. In particular, the serial architecture, where it's one question after another, which to me is a textbook example of design thinking, like understanding how people in a digitized world operate. That was like, what, 2000? I remember 2015. I was on the corporate side, and I was
Typeform was founded in 2012. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I had to. I was like an internal evangelist, telling a greedy sales culture to not put a form with 10 questions up. Like, don't do it. Look what these guys are doing. And they were like, yeah, but what if somebody bails? And it's like, oh, scared marketers are such a pain in the ass, you know? But understanding how people work in a digitized world, meaning you're starting to get hit, right, with flack, you're right, on every screen. And so that's when people also started to say, watch this 60-second video. Like they would start to tell people what was on the other side of the click in terms of your investment of time. And I think was the genius of that serial architecture, is that understanding that people, you can spoon feed them in as opposed to just giving them the whole gamut, you know? And I think that's still, I mean, at least for me, I have to say, when I think about Typeform, I still think about that's still like a core equity in terms of, you know, brand.
That is 100%. That is our brand differentiation. And I think I like what you're saying, Brian, around the design thinking. I think if you take it the step further too, is that design inherently allows you to apply your brand in such a more compelling way, right? And that's what we allow, I think, brands to do at a variety of different altitudes. Is then when you have that interaction, it's that step by step, it's conversational. But then you feel like you get more of a taste of like, okay, what is this company and brand that I'm interacting with? Why am I even giving them this data, right? Like, what are they going to do with this data? So 100.
And if you do it right, which is, there's almost no excuse for not doing it right now with agentic AI, right? Mm-hmm. If you do it right, and again, goes back to my comment about scared marketers, you allow the other person to have some co-authorship of the journey. And I think that's really important, that a lot of programmatic marketers, they don't understand how important that is. And that goes back to just basic communication psychology, is allowing people to have some investment in the conversation. If it's all, you know, if you're backing up the truck and just dumping all your pearls on me, it's passive. I'm not going to remember anything because I didn't engage. You know?
Well, and vice versa. If you don't know where your data is going or why you're doing this, right, or what the company is going to do. I remember this back in my MailChimp days, we had done a study on this, and this goes back to the trust. And I think that's what, I think that the conversational platform that Typeform have is around like building that trust with the consumer, which is, even more critical today, right?
Can you expand on that? Like, because the data, when you say collects data, I'm like, yeah. You know, who doesn't, right? So, and that's probably your point, right? But yeah, just elaborate on that so I can appreciate what Typeform is doing.
Yeah, I think what we are doing, I think in our interface, and I think what we are doing in, I think trying to serve our customers, even I think a lot of the marketing kind of in the different kind of thought leadership and content that we're putting out there is, how do you get those great insights from your customers? And I think it ultimately, I mean, yeah, we're all very jaded, right? To your point on everyone's going to collect data from me. I think people are more likely, I think consumers are more likely to offer their data when they understand how it's going to be used.
Okay.
And then ultimately, I think the beauty of Typeform, and I think a lot of the tools that we're putting into the platform, a lot of what we're kind of taking our customer through in the evolution and the transformation that we're at is you can figure out more insights from your customers to be able to serve them better, right? Ultimately, it's around like, sure, I'll give you my data if I feel like I'm actually getting value out of it.
Sure.
But the thing I just hate is you have to download an app to be able to even participate somewhere, right? Or I have to be able to answer these 5 questions, and it's a explicit opt-in, in terms of consent, and I have to be able to give my email, and then I have to get those. I have to be subscribed. Those are where like the brands lose trust.
Sure.
And I think Typeform really has helped to, in that step-by-step conversation, I think of what we're also thinking about to develop in those AI tools is, I think that's critical. It's like, you can't build trust with customers if like you said, it's like a one-sided transaction. It's give me all your data and I won't even tell you what I'm going to do with it.
No. I've always said confident brands give something away.
Mm-hmm.
You always do that. You make the first exchange, right? Because we are in a way, we're in a barter economy, right? Like, I'll give you this, would you give me that, right? Can you bring it down to the ground? Like, give me an example where Typeform, where it would be a difference. CX, right? What's the customer experience? Because I think while it's come a long ways, a lot of forms still, instead of looking at them as a tool, they need to be seen as a channel, right? And I think you get that, right? Because I think the language on your website says brand experience, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want to get into semantics, but I would say CX, like customer experience, because that's where you can start to win somebody over. And I'm kind of going on a riff here. Sorry about that. But, the other day, it was my wife's birthday, and I was a little late on the planning. So I had to call a couple of restaurants, and go like, and, Resi, Open Table. I hate Resi, by the way. And we can publish that. But Open Table, not much better. And the problem is it's very mechanical and very impersonal. And it's like, well, here's your choice. It's like Calendly for restaurants. So it's like,
honestly though,
who's doing the work here? Like, not them. And so I always call the restaurant and say, hey, I was on Resi and they only have 8:45. Do you have anything earlier? It's my wife's birthday and I kind of screwed up. And so you make it personal, and somebody says, well, we could do 7:30. Yep. And I go, okay. And she sends it to me, says, okay, you're in, look for something coming from Open Table. It comes, and I'm like, well, Open Table didn't fucking do that. She did it. The person did it, right? And so to me, that's customer experience, right? And I want to go there now. And I go in with a smile, and I can't wait to see a human because they were so nice to me. It's amazing the outsized impact of that small customer relationship thing. And I think the forms need to think that way, Anyways, can you give me an example?
A lot to unpack there. Yes. Okay.
I know.
Okay. I want to talk about kind of community and this like tension too between, I think, where we're going from an AI perspective and community.
Okay.
But we'll go on that thought first. So, Brian, I think your question around, how do we think about the CX, and then what are we putting kind of into the product to continue that? I think it's this blend of how do you have, especially I think in the SMB space, like how do you have the most approachable AI tools that feel helpful, feel transparent to some extent? Because I think there is this like opaqueness of, okay, it analyzed it and it spit it out, and completely understand like why. So we have this ability to make, basically Typeform now is anyone can be a form expert. So what I really like around like the way that AI works and Typeform AI works in Typeform is you don't have to, I think to your point around how do you create this amazing customer experience, but maybe you're not an expert in how to create that, like, what are the right questions to ask, right?
Right.
How do you how do you like bring someone in and say, okay, what is those like first couple questions? Or like, okay, I understand what they're asking me. I'm ready to trust. I'm ready to kind of have this conversation and give over some of my data. Typeform AI will be able to help, I think, those who are not form experts. And I think even on the marketer side, I wouldn't say I'm not necessarily a form expert. I think marketers, that's who a lot of our target market is. Forms are not necessarily like, I agree with you, like forms are a channel. I wouldn't say that's something that I think you go through as like marketer 101, right? Like in terms of like how you think about kind of building this incredible form to work with customers. So I think it's this combination of we have the ability through AI to now empower everyone to be a form expert, coupled with we have the DNA of this incredible experience, right? That feels much more conversational, feels human-centric. I think it also through then using AI, it makes it so much easier to just bring your brand over and make it feel really authentic and genuine to your brand versus having something like slapped on your website or like slapped in some type of email.
So how would that happen? The authentic to your brand, how would that happen? Is it because I see like in the video on your website, it's very almost like a quasi landing page kind of experience, right? Is that where you're pointing toward?
I think even the ability to import brand kits, and I think even AI giving you more advice. I think that that's where the magic for AI for marketers will help. Is it really just almost gives you that like double check, or maybe even just gives you a little bit of the like, hey, think about this. A lot of other forms, to your point, like just they feel sterile, right, or not necessarily like adhered to the brand. So I think that's the magic of this step-by-step conversational paradigm, right, that Typeform innovated, right, and founded, still feels so relevant 14 years later.
So you actually, sorry, Bōggie, I will let you talk eventually. You actually said
eventually.
if today I had to take a crack at your website, I would. You said the H1, and it skews a little small business, but anyone can be a form expert. That's all right. So you can take credit for that when it appears.
This is my homepage.
No, seriously, you know what? So I'm in San Francisco, right? And it's crazy. Every single outdoor billboard, 90+% is AI, which a lot of it is esoteric. It's probably written by AI that got its head bumped. I mean, it's just nothing is coherent or grammatically correct. And I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just garbage. But I could see that. Anyone could be a form expert, Typeform. That would stick in my head while I'm driving. And then at some point when I sit down, I'd say, what are they doing now? I mean, if I wasn't using it, right? So I think, and the fact that you can bring that layer over your legacy of, the Apple of Typeforms, because it was a design thinking creation.
So we usually start out the podcast with the question, like, what's the dream, right? Yeah. What's the big dream? What's the big goal? And I think,
personal.
Brian's been mentioning personal. Yeah.
Like what's not as your CMO hat, but as somebody who, like, let's say, we're having a beer somewhere, you go like, I just want to change the world. Like, it's okay if it's big. What's your dream with Typeform?
Okay. Not the CMO hat. So I think the dream for Typeform is, and Brian, when you were hinting a little bit at this from this kind of concept of platform. So the great thing about a form and the great thing about where Typeform sits is we have such an incredible data collection tool. What we want to do is to be able to provide more value, right? Serve our customers better. And I think see where we can evolve our current AI tooling and what our incredible R&D organization is doing is we want to now create a platform where the data collection is just the beginning. And now, like, what are the right workflows for specific use cases? And, I think the verticals that we serve best, how can we now create this? We're calling it forms to flows. So how do we move from just a form builder to now a workflow platform so one of our big use cases is what we're calling customer flow. And so there's obviously a lot of marketers, a lot of salespeople who are using forms, right, to figure out, okay, I want to talk to leads, right? I want to figure out how to get them into the pipeline. Wouldn't it be incredible if you didn't now have to take that data and put it into another platform? Right. And then actually, right, do all the follow-up. We already have enrichment, so it's already all in there anyway. And so that's really the vision. That's the dream for Typeform, is really this transformation, right? Of like, we want to keep all that amazing design ethos, this incredible way that we can create and protect, I think, brand for our customers, what we're known for, right? It's like, it's not, I can call it a lot of different competitors, right? But there's not I'll go back to kind of a little bit, the sterility or like the impersonal nature, I think, of a lot of their form builders. So how do we create and continue to hold front and center, right, our competitive differentiation, and then add on that next step of how could you automate talking to leads, or how could you automate using AI to consolidate research and get more insights there? Because we do a lot of one of the other use cases is a lot of customer feedback, right? And so it's like, how do you figure out how to get all that customer feedback in that amazing kind of step-by-step question format? Yeah, so that's the dream.
Yeah, there was like half a decade ago, Bōggie and I were working on an East Coast bank, a very large community bank there that wanted to get back into the mortgage lending business. Okay. And so we worked on a campaign for them, and it was hyper local. And they wanted people to give them like some information on a form. And we were trying to explain to them that if form is done right, you don't, to the point about what you said about collecting data and then moving it over to another platform, whether it's Salesforce or whatever. Yeah. And we were trying to explain to them that if a form is done correctly, it's more like a customer concierge. Like it can advance them, it can advance the journey, it can accelerate the lead in real time at what we were calling the point of contact, to actually make a form a customer experience as opposed to data collection. And I think the world has moved a little toward that, but not sufficiently, I don't think.
I think right now, and I'll jump in on that thought, I think right now we have just like when Typeform came into existence, how they redefined, you can call it data collection on a website, right? Mm-hmm. We have that opportunity now in a completely different way of interacting with customers, beyond even a form. Now, I think the back end is still a form. It's still databases. It's still questions. It's still that. But the experience can be very different.
But the rules engine, if you accept that term, right, in AI is generative, right? And it's generative very specifically, right? I mean, the problem is until AI gets specific, it's best practice. And best practice inherently creates a sameness. It's just, that's what it is. So everything groups, there was an amazing graph where it talks about innovation and creativity. Initially, AI is exciting because a lot of us can get up to best practice, but it never moves out. It doesn't create anything different because it's basing everything, and it becomes increasingly based on that regurgitative process.
So we put out we just put out a data report last week, kind of getting marketers feedback, thoughts, fears on AI, right? And kind of understanding, like, for our market, what are marketers thinking about as it relates to AI? And I think it kind of was what you're saying is pretty much everyone's using it. 95% of the marketers that we surveyed said they were using it. Yeah. But it's that tension between how do you use it? What are they most scared? What's their biggest fear? How do you continue to make individual marketing campaigns? And how do you keep that creativity? I think that's what I think is kind of at the crux of what I think Typeform can help marketers do. But I also think we have to, I mean, I think as a marketer, we have to, I'm so curious to see what happens with Gen AI. I feel like we're at this like weird crux, and I don't know how y'all feel about this, is like with the rise of social media, it feels like trends are now homogenous, right? It feels like I feel like when you used to travel to different cities throughout the world, right?
Right.
There felt like there was like a vibe that was kind of, in the big major cities.
Unique to each,
Yeah. When I feel like any big city now is a big city. Everyone's dressed the same, the food's the same. Like, and so I think what Typeform can provide and what we can do, I think through the tool, but I think also through just continuing to be a partner to our customers, is how do we figure out how to like rise above the homogeneity? I think that AI is already.
Well, I have an answer for you. I think it's very simple. I think it's a lot of stuff that we've been talking about so far. It's, Brian mentioned about making new associations, right? What if, for example, a form becomes a living and breathing form? What if you set maybe some of the key questions you need to know, but what if we let the AI do the follow-up questions? What if all of a sudden, okay, I like this, and then the AI is able to think, okay, tell us more about this, and here's why, and then you're able to gather the information, get to learn more about the customer or whatever you're trying to get done. Yeah. But you're using AI to its potential, right? And that's not necessarily in building the form but it's building the form during the interaction. I think that's where it gets very real and dangerous. So we have a project right now, right? And I asked as a particular project where I needed to create a fun quiz, right? Just a fun quiz for our particular audience. AI not only generated the entire quiz, it generated the entire calculations behind the quiz. It generated the entire archetypes that came out of those quiz. And if I wanted to ask it to create follow-up questions in real time, it would be able to. So that technology is available today. I think the question is not whether it's available today. The question is who grasps it first and crystallizes it to their customer base. I think that's what it comes down to at this point.
Yeah. And who, I think depending on where you sit in the market, like I think what gives me a lot of energy and what I've worked on in a lot of different parts of my career is like, how do you kind of democratize these tools that are, maybe for someone who is far more tech forward and had like an entire team, right? Whether it's enterprise or was just in a certain part of the market, and say, how can I give those tools to smaller businesses, maybe they have one marketer on staff, and kind of unlock, which is definitely so Typeform AI, as we kind of call the umbrella term, right, for all of the different generative AI features in Typeform, is doing a lot of that. So, we've got a feature called Clarify with AI that I think, Bōggie, it's like what you're talking about, where depending on what you're getting, right, or if you're not getting the best answers, right, if you're not eliciting like the type of data that you want, it'll help you recraft, right, reshape those questions. But yeah, I agree with you. I think this kind of constant, like, where is this from as a marketer? Where is this going? How do I continue to stay brand centric, customer centric, knowing that there can be AI slop, right? And there's like homogeneity, and like, where is the best use case for AI? It is around like, just how do you harness the power of all this data and insights? And then you have that kind of human intervention to say, and that the human oversight to say, okay, this is what it's telling me. What am I going to do with that?
It's like an experience engineer. Like you need somebody to not just code or something, but somebody who's. It's almost like I can imagine archetypes like I want this Typeform to converse like Lewis Black, or I want this Typeform to converse like Adam Sandler, or I want this Typeform to converse. I mean, obviously, I don't know if that's an IP issue, even if it's an archetype. I mean, you're not doing the voice, but you're just, what would the exchange be like if it was that persona or if it was that persona? So one, you can give it some color, but the other thing is like with AI, there's a world of difference between a prompt that just asks AI to do something, because it's gonna hoover its database, which is at large, and it's going to give you the most probable answer, which is the antithesis of creativity, right? And if you do a similar prompt, but you feed it like your writing, your articles, a few of your decks, the difference is night and day. Now, it by the third prompt, it defaults to best practice because it's running out of specificity.
Technically be memory, but yes.
Exactly.
Is that, you know, the magic of, I think, using AI in a tool like Typeform is that it has, right, and because forms are the data collectors, right, like it has all of your data. It can make it hyper personalized, right, to your data.
Right.
But you still have the engine of, I mean, Typeform has billions upon billions, right, of data points, right, to be able to say, hey, like, if we look at industry, or if we look at different verticals, like what potentially could be a best practice as well. So you want, it's like you want to sit in that like messy middle of like the hyper personalized, but also having kind of general best practices.
When Typeform came into existence, I would argue that it revolutionized the kind of the front-end experience, right? The customer experience, right? And it seems like in the last few years, we've been focused a lot on the back-end experience, not on the form taker, but on the form builder. What's your thoughts on that? I see the two audiences, right, equally as important. Is that true? Am I kind of seeing something that I'm not seeing, or?
No, I agree. I think it's around kind of breaking down the wall between them, right? So so if you're thinking about the form taker and you're thinking about the customer experience, and then you're thinking about the form builder, so who is our, right, kind of our first customer, right, who we're actually selling to. I think it's around, you build everything in service to, yes, the end result is how do you make taking the form as delightful, as easy, right, as possible. How do you take that form being the best expression of the brand still, right, in terms of what our competitive differentiation is. But ultimately, I think we're here to serve both, right? Because ultimately, if we need to serve our customer, but we actually need to serve our customer's customer. At the very end of the day, because that's that's how we're gonna drive the most success for our customer. Right. Yeah. So I think being able to kind of get that across, and using tools like Typeform AI to show that our customers can now get that much closer to their customer through the tool. So it's not just around the form and what the experience is to their customers. It's around all of the incredible insights and like I was saying before, Brian, like, how can we make you the form expert without you having to be the form expert? So I think it's really tying that together, because ultimately it needs to be, they feed each other.
No,
and
you're
I think
right.
if you focus on one, then we're losing the plot, because ultimately, right, we want to create growth, success for our customers, which is making them that much more successful with theirs.
No, you're right. I mean, it's funny language. And again, it's probably like a good headline somewhere is serving your customer's customer is how you serve your customer. It's like, okay, sounds crazy, but I get it. And you're right. You used the word delighted, which is a wonderful word, but it kind of got like run over by its use in the corporate world, right? Delight the customer. And people don't understand what delight, like, how does delight happen, right? Yeah. And they think, oh, it's just make them happy. It's great service. It's like, no, delight happens by surprise. You're delighted because something happened you didn't expect, right? Now you get into expectations, and expectations are set up and down over time based on experience, right? So somebody will fly. So my wife runs in here in San Francisco, and people are flying in, and they wanted to come in at 1, 2 in the afternoon, and then they thought they'd come in at 8 o'clock. So we sent them late check-in information. They ended up coming in at 10:30 or 11. And they're wiped out the next morning. They're just happy to be on the ground, but they're like, oh, the airlines, that's what people expect. Mm-hmm. So if your flight leaves on time, there's no turbulence, you get in and my luggage is right there, you're delighted. That's how it should be, but you're delighted because you're braced for the worst, right? So you have to understand what's happening in people to protect them, right? Because I'm not going to, I know what it should be like. I know what something should cost. Mm-hmm. But my experience keeps banging against that. And so I reset to protect myself what I expect. Now, something comes in Typeform and it's simple and it's clean and it's effortless and it felt like a friend. And you're like, I'm delighted. I'm delighted based on what I expected. It was a pleasant alternative to what I expected. That's one type of delight. Another type of delight is, I did not see that coming. Mm-hmm. I was talking to Bōggie one time, and it was my birthday, and he goes, holy shit. 15, 20 minutes later, a car pulls up with 2 girls. I don't know why it was 2 girls, but 2 girls came. They wanted to make sure I was me, and they gave me a bottle of wine. I didn't expect that. It was from him, by the way, not them. But I didn't expect that. I know. I did not see that coming at all. Mm-hmm. So that didn't have to do with what I expected. That had to do with I didn't even have a pin mentally for that. Yeah. So that's how delight happens. It doesn't happen from just good customer service, although that is what it is. It happens from something unexpected happening.
Mm-hmm. Yes, unexpected. And so I think
the surprise.
I think this goes into, I definitely could dive a lot into different consumer psychology, but I think the dream for Typeform, and I think personally, the dream, I think as a marketer, where I hope AI is going in at least one route, is how can it help us unlock understanding more of that consumer behavior, mm-hmm. to figure out where would those moments of delight be. And thinking around, okay, if you really get that much closer to your target customer, what are their pain points? What would be there's a little bit of there's a scale of, okay, if I'm thinking about what the kind of mass pain points are of my customers versus maybe there's one thing you could delight, more at a one-to-one basis. But I think AI has the potential to unlock for us calling a lot more of those qualitative insights, right? And I think that's what people are also hungry for, is more of the why. Because you all day long, you can say, okay, I understand that this point A becomes point B, but I don't mm-hmm. understand why. And so it's really hard to figure out how to delight your customers until you understand how they move from point A to point B. And I think that's a lot of what we're thinking around. We're building in Typeform. And I think that's where AI can really help to be able to mm-hmm. consolidate those qualitative insights in mass, and think around how do you even get that? Because besides the actual form being delightful and the experience being delightful, right. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, right? We want to be able to empower our customers to have the insights to then, what's that next step, right? Because the form is the beginning. Yeah. What do you then do with that?
Well, the key is, you almost aren't going to be able to achieve that unless you get into the customer psychology, because it's mm-hmm. at that level all the drivers are, feeling valued, and so understanding that and having that sensitivity as you build the platform is very important, because otherwise it's going to default to, I'm basically fishing. I'm on a fishing mm-hmm. expedition.
Right, which is what a lot of forms and data collection can feel like.
And people know that. They sense that. And the ubiquity means people just are like, oh, okay, whatever, But there's a cynical outcome where it's like, well, everybody's just trying to, Well,
there's a couple of thoughts I have. With Typeform, I think there's 2 routes I'm seeing from, again, my personal opinion. You have the depth of it to where you guys are able to really reinvent the customer experience once again, using AI really at its core. But then if you look at it from the width perspective, right, from the breadth perspective, is how do you bring that insight and that kind of that power to your like first degree user who is the form builder, right? And one of the reasons right now, like we put together a Typeform, right? A simple Typeform for a particular project, and I'm having to have that data move over to a different platform because I need to do something with that data now, and that is the width opportunity there. Not to have a customer leave Typeform to use their data, but to use it in there, and that takes a lot of work, a lot of infrastructure work. I know.
And I think you're trying to elevate form building out of where it typically is placed in a marketing department, more to the marketing creators, right? The people that are, how are we going to connect, establish a dialogue, and build a relationship? How are we going to do that? And the form is integral to that. It's not kind of like now we need a form because we have the campaigns.
You said the key word, conversation. I think that's the most important word here because that's what it is. It's a conversation happening.
Generative.
It may be, exactly. It may be a form, maybe some typing, but the real thing that's happening is a conversation. And so making it as real of a conversation as possible using generative. And I think that'd be a huge opportunity for Typeform. But having said that,
as opposed to putting human skin over a prompt.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think there's also back to, how do we connect with our customers? It's that same philosophy of, okay, we want in mass, like the software, right, to be a conversation with your customers. We want to also figure out how to, I think, be true and authentic to that ethos with our customers. So some of the things I love that, we do as a brand, we do as a marketing team is like, we're out there in the community talking to our customers, right? We do things like, we call them tune up your Typeform. And so, right, we invite customers to like bring us examples of Typeforms that they're like, these are busted. Like I need help with them. Right. And I think it starts to kind of be able to kind of prompt those conversations, be like, how would we do this? And then how do we kind of show that at scale? But yeah, I think it's all around, I agree. It's all around this conversation and ultimately like just getting as close as possible to your customer and figuring out what the motivations are. And then how can generative AI accelerate that?
What keeps you up at night? What are the things that you like? I'd love to hear someone give me a thought about
what do you wish people knew about Typeform that they don't know? If you could get up on a rooftop and scream,
scream. I think it's not the Typeform that you knew, right? It's everything that you love about Typeform, but what keeps me up at night, and it's so hand in hand with what the dream is we have such an incredible opportunity to really, I don't want to call it a brand transformation because we want to stay right at the center of what we've always been, right? Evolution. And what our differentiation is, right? With being design led, right? Having these incredible conversational forums. But we want to serve our customer, provide more value, right? And become more of a platform versus what I would say. I think we're known for being a little more of a point solution, right? And saying, okay, I must have, if being brand led, design led is important, and being able to have those conversations with your customer. I think customers come, right? Our target customers come to Typeform first to say, I want to be able to have this as the first way I start to interact, right? And talk to my customers. We want to be more than now. And all of that kind of underlined by, I agree with Brian, I think you were talking about this before. It's like, every single software company is like just putting AI, right? As a prefix for everything. Yeah. We want to make it actually valuable. So it's very challenging. What keeps me up at night as a marketer, it's very challenging to feel like you're not just tagging on and you're not just going to be like right in the sameness of okay, I have to be able to, we have incredible AI products and functionality within the tool. How do we actually reach our target customers and let them know that it's not just lip service, right? It actually is something that is really going to revolutionize how they're using Typeform.
So I mean, that gets into messaging. And so you can't use the same lexicon, even though you feel like you've got to hit certain buzzwords or keywords to explain what you're doing. But if you use the same lexicon, you're just going to sound like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And while that seems like important, it's price of entry. So how do you talk about it in a different way? You have to find your own voice. You have to, or you're just going to blend in.
We have this debate all the time. I think that's where, Brian, you reference like our homepage, right? Is that like, how do you talk about the fact that's like, you can be a form expert, right? With the help of Typeform and figuring out, right? Like, how do you imply that there is so much that's going to be automated, but automated under your control? So yes, we've had those debates day in, day out, right?
Who came up with that line, form expert? That was me, right? I came up with that, right?
You came up. Well, that also is on our homepage.
That was yours.
That was good.
That was yours. You can accept the award.
It was our incredible copy team.
Okay. That's a good one, though. I would use that somewhere. Anyways. Well.
Oh, my God.
I don't know. Did we accomplish anything?
Fun conversation on a Monday.
Okay. All right. Well, we like to add value. I mean, it's nice to talk and that's fun, but we like to kind of try to give you something you hadn't thought of or give you, and I'm not sure we did that, but I hope we did. I don't know.
I mean, I love the insight. I love the energy and the insight into the Typeform form interface. I mean, especially someone who's newer to Typeform, right? I joined last year. And kind of at this time where it really is this, we're at this tipping point of like, what is the next thing? Obviously,
right.
All companies in our space, right, are trying to figure out like how to continue to stay relevant and like how much do you adhere to your roots? How much do you kind of jump on the bandwagon? It's great insight to hear.
Cool.